Guys of Reddit who have rejected someone. What's the worst way someone has taken it? Before we dig into it, don't forget to like and subscribe.
Story 1. Was in NY during Fleet Week in my dress, whites, with my group waiting to cross the street. Drunk girl comes up to me, grabs me, and says she's always wanted to be with a sailor. I gently stiff arm and let her know I'm happily married, but point out my young single shipmate in the group. But I wound Yahoo. Her friends have arrived by this point. She told them I was being mean because I said no and started crying. The friends confronted me, it's her birthday though. Your wife isn't even here, just be nice. Story 2. Called me a greedy Jew. I'm not even a Jew. Story 3. I came home from work to find her naked on my bed about a week after we broke up. She went into complete denial about the breakup and for months after would tell people we were still dating / show up at my house. Story 4. Dated a girl from work. After a few dates I didn't see it going much further. Ended it girl pretty much spread around. We fricked at work. We didn't that single-handedly cost me any kind of promotion or horizontal move off what I was doing. So I ended up changing jobs about 12 months later after every application for promotion was given to someone else. Despite myself having a lot more experience or know-how with what we did prior to that, I was being moved around from project to project. After I just went back to permanent nights, said girl went on to get pregnant about 6 months later by someone else from work. Lesson, don't dip your wick in company ink. Story 5. A girl at work started playing some aggressive footsie at work. When I pushed her foot away and gave her a look, she went on to tell me I'm not as attractive as I think I am and that I should start dating girls in my own league. Story 6. Lying to me that she had become pregnant and intended to keep the kid. We had always practiced safe sex, but condoms have a non-zero failure rate and there's no good way to tell someone who says they're pregnant that they're wrong. So I took her at her word. After 3 weeks of her stalling on showing me any kind of proof beyond her word, she told me it wasn't going to be a problem, but I was beside myself with stress until then. Meanwhile, I'm figuring out if I need to lawyer up, I take responsibility for myself. So being a deadbeat wasn't an option, but child support was going to throw a huge wrench into my financial plans. I was in the middle of moving to a new city as well. All in all, it sucked near. As I can tell, her goal was to inflict stress and pain. She succeeded. Story 7. A dude asked me over to his house to study. He put on some porn and asked to jerk me off. I said no and then he figured he'd ask if he could blow me. I rejected him and told my mom to come get me. He persisted the whole time. Then, at school, every time he saw me, he very loudly called me gay to everyone around him. I am not into dudes and he was in the closet. Honestly, I just smiled and kept moving every time and he eventually gave up. I think he came out 2 years later and was one of the 4 gay dudes in school in revolving relationships with each other. Story 8. Told everyone in the office I was gay. I have no problem with gay people, so I played along. Story 9. Me and this Irish chick hooked up. We had a few great nights of fricking each other's brains out. Come the following week, we played it off at work like nothing ever happened. About 2 weeks after that we were fricking and sucking each other silly after work. I realized after a month that our 20-year difference in age is gonna lead us nowhere together. I break this to her and she walks to the site parking lot and burns my pickup truck to the ground like not even the aluminum rim survived this. She was arrested for arson. I laid no charges against her. I got a new truck thanks to insurance. Never frick around with a redhead. They're psycho. Story 10. Rejected 3 different girls in a 2-month span, and all 3 were you gay. No, so I'm ugly. I didn't say that. Word for word. Every incident, lol. One of them was kind of fugly though. Story 11. One took it gracefully with great friends and it has never been mentioned again. One took it okay enough. Conversations got colder but no baggy. One couldn't take no for an answer. Every conversation progressed to, do you want to / why don't you want to date me? Got old quick. I tried being nice and letting her off easy, but she wouldn't stop. Cut her out of my life. But the last thing she told me was, I'll wait for you. I'm not even good looking. Story 12. Not me, but my best friend in school. She came on to him hard in public. There were about a dozen people around. He was startled and turned her down. She then started screaming, stamping her feet and crying. Then she told all her friends that she would commit suicide. They tried to guilt my friend with that, but he managed to shrug it off. The whole thing blew off in 3 days. High school was weird. Story 13. My ex-wife started acting real shady, sneaking out of the house to make phone calls, hiding incoming calls and not telling who was calling in the middle of date night. Even though I asked nicely, she was also a mean drunk and had started drinking to excess every night. Then the physical violence started, throwing crap at my head, including a large rock, kicking and punching when she got angry. This is where I drew the line. One night she went off the rails again in front of her small children, and I just knew that I could no longer live like that. I had just returned home from a week-long business trip and hadn't unpacked my bags yet, so I grabbed those, took one last look at my nice home and my family, and left. As I walked out, I knew full well that all of the things I didn't grab were probably gone for good. But I needed to be as well, or I would either end up in jail or dead. She blew my phone up for the next couple of weeks, at least 60 text messages a day on the work cell, all hate-filled and incredibly vile. I tried to call her a couple of times when off of work to talk about how we could best separate our finances and things and tried to move on amicably, but she would just scream and accuse me of cheating because that was the only logical reason why I had left. Cheaters all do this. BTW, the last time we talked before the divorce, she threatened to file a false police report for harming her 4-year-old son. She didn't specify whether the allegation would be physical or sexual in nature. That didn't matter to me. Neither happened, and either one would end my career and my freedom. I cut off all contact. I tried to get her served with divorce papers, only to learn from the process server she had abandoned the home. I went to survey the damage to find almost all of my clothes had been bleached, along with our new living room set. The new dining room table and chairs had been gouged. Weeks' worth of trash and raw food had been left out. The refrigerator had been turned off, leaving hundreds of dollars of food to rot. The whole place smelled like death. She had also taken all of the electronics, probably to hawk. My passport with stamps in it from around the world and a painting I had inherited from my beloved grandfather who had passed away. She knew this would hurt me the most. All said and done, $7,000 in property damage and another $1,500 in stolen property. I filed a police report for insurance reasons and also for a restraining order because my ex had obviously gone back crap and was capable of anything. The police, of course, didn't give two craps, not surprisingly, because vagina. Story 14. Fine, I'll just go frick your best friend instead. I just let her go ahead and ask out my very gay friend. Then I fricked her best friend. Good times. Story 15. She cried and was wailing. It was because she was ugly and it's her weird nose. In public. I told her it wasn't, and it's me. I used to think I wasn't shallow, but her nose was Mount Everest and Uncanny Valley at the same time. She later said I slapped my dick on her nose to get off. Edit, I did not have sexual relations with that nose. Story 16. She stalked the crap out of me, stole hair clippings, and made a shrine to me in her closet. She was a real mental case. It's been over a decade, but she still seems to find me somehow. Story 17. The girl in high school out of the blue started describing what our house would be like once we got married and had kids, told her that I really wasn't interested and she lost her goddamn mind. For like 2 weeks she'd wait by the doors after school just to glare at me. Never said anything, just glared. Story 18. In high school, this girl would not stop texting me, so I blocked her. She then went on to tell her friends she was depressed and couldn't GRT over me, even though I rarely spoke to her in person, only through her constant stream of messages. After that, she fainted almost once a day during class, but coincidentally, only in the classes she shared with me, then would cry to her friends that I was the reason she was fainting. Of course, though, she never hurt herself during these faints and always managed to land comfortably on the ground. She also used to just storm out the door in the middle of class and literally fall out the door. Story 19. I once went on an internet double date. My friend had been internet dating this woman for a while and needed a driver to go meet her for the first time. To help convince me to drive, they arranged for one of her friends to come with. When we got to the meetup spot a few cities over, the friend wasn't this stuck at work, so I was forced to play third wheel, watching my friend and his girlfriend profess their love and make out. Needless to say, when friend finally showed up, I was overjoyed. She misinterpreted my thank god, someone to talk to reaction for oh my god, love at first sight reaction. She got way intense, way quick, so I eventually let her down as easily as I could. For months afterwards, I'd get multiple emails and phone calls a day, with the craziest example being an email with our names together forever I love you typed out once for every day since we'd met. She also apparently went to my work once, but luckily I wasn't there at the time. I was on the verge of calling the cops after that stunt. Eventually, my complete lack of responses to her communication, and after blocking several of her email addresses, it tapered off, but I'd still get random phone calls and emails from her even years after this